For one terrifying week in 1895, the United States was just a few $1 million away from running out of gold. And the man who saved it wasn't a president or a general, but a banker sitting in a private library in New York. His name was John Pierpont Morgan. By the time he died, he'd bailed out the American government twice, assembled the world's first billion-dollar corporation, and controlled more wealth than 2/3 of the entire US economy. But here's the strange part. When he died, people were shocked to discover he wasn't even that rich, not compared to the other titans of his era. So how did one man wield that much power without actually being the wealthiest in the room? To understand J.P. Morgan, you have to start with his father. Junius Spencer Morgan was everything young Pierpont aspired to be. Disciplined, respected, connected. Junius had one mission for his son: turn him into the perfect successor. It was a relationship built on tough love. Junius didn't coddle, he molded. And Pierpont spent his entire life trying to live up to that impossible standard. Born into privilege in 1837, Pierpont had every advantage. But his childhood wasn't easy. He was constantly sick. Seizures, rheumatic fever, scarlet fever, migraines that left him bedridden for days. And then there was his nose. Pierpont suffered from acne rosacea, a condition that inflamed and ruptured the blood vessels in his face. Over time, his nose transformed into a bulbous, disfigured mass. It became the most recognizable thing about him, and he hated it. In every portrait, he demanded they retouch his nose, the 1800s version of Photoshop. He understood the power of image. His health kept him isolated. While other kids played, Pierpont stayed indoors, reading financial statements. He became a natural at numbers, a loner who found comfort in structure and control. And when he wasn't studying, he played solitaire. A lot of it. It became a lifelong obsession, a way to think, to strategize. That habit would serve him well later, when he'd lock bankers in rooms and play cards while they negotiated the fate of the American economy. He idolized powerful men, writing school essays about Napoleon, fascinated by the general's relentless ambition. The idea stuck. Real power wasn't just money. It was influence, leverage, and will. His father seemed to believe that isolation built character. At 15, Junius shipped Pierpont off to the remote Azores Island for an entire year to recover from rheumatic fever. Alone.
No family. A few years later, he was sent to a Swiss boarding school, 600 miles away. It wasn't cruelty, it was calculated. Pierpont learned to rely on himself, to endure. After finishing school, he headed to Wall Street, starting as an unpaid clerk. And every Tuesday and Friday, for 33 years, he wrote long, detailed letters to his father about markets, politics, and deals. It was their bond, their partnership. By 1861, at just 24, he founded J.P. Pierpont Morgan and Company, and he met Amelia Sturgis, or Mimi. He was completely captivated. But then, Mimi developed a cough that wouldn't go away. She was too sick for a wedding, but Pierpont wouldn't wait. He carried her down the stairs to her own ceremony. Desperate, he took her to Algiers, but the diagnosis came back: tuberculosis, a death sentence. 4 months after their wedding, Mimi was gone. Pierpont returned to New York, devastated. He did the only thing he knew how to do. He buried himself in work. Then the Civil War reached his doorstep. In 1863, when the draft was enacted, Morgan, like Carnegie and Rockefeller, paid $300 for a substitute. Someone else would go to war in his place. But Morgan didn't sit idle. War was too profitable. He made a fortune trading Union bonds. Then came the Hall Carbine affair. He loaned money to a man who bought 5,000 outdated rifles from the Union Army for $350 each, upgraded them slightly, and sold them back to a desperate Union general for $22 each. A congressional committee later called the people involved worse than traitors. His father was furious. Junius preached caution, slow and sure, but Pierpont was playing a faster, riskier game. After the war, he remarried to a woman named Fanny and had 4 children. As his family grew, so did his ambition. Because by the time the Civil War ended, America was entering a new era. An era of unprecedented growth, innovation, and wealth. They'd later call it the Gilded Age. And J.P. Morgan was perfectly positioned to own it. By 1870, America was exploding. The Civil War was over and fortunes were being made faster than anyone had ever seen. Names like Carnegie and Rockefeller were on everyone's lips. And J.P. Morgan? He was perfectly positioned, the bridge between old-world European money and the booming American economy. And then, at just 33 years old, as the world was beating down his door, he announced he was done, burned out, ready to retire. His father wasn't having it. Junius Morgan had spent years positioning his son for this exact moment. He arranged a new partnership with Pierpont with an established Philadelphia banker. Pierpont agreed on one condition. He needed a vacation, a long one. He disappeared for 15 months. When he returned, he was a different man. He bought a sprawling estate on the Hudson River he called Cragston. It was his sanctuary. Morgan demanded perfection in everything. His gardens, his finances, his office. He even banned women from his Wall Street building, except for one day a year when the markets were closed. Focus, control, discipline. And it worked. While the median American income was $500 a year, Morgan was making over $500,000. It wasn't just the money, it was his presence. 6'2", with a disfigured nose and a piercing gaze described as staring into the light of an oncoming train. He could bend people to his will without saying a word. Nowhere was that power more evident than with the railroads. The industry was a mess. Dozens of companies laying competing tracks, driving prices down, racing toward bankruptcy. Morgan saw opportunity. Instead of just lending money, he took an active role. He joined boards, restructured companies, and imposed financial discipline. People started calling it Morganization. We'd call it activist investing. His reputation grew. Then came the moment that defined his power. 2 of the country's largest railroads were tearing each other apart, threatening to take the entire economy down with them. Morgan invited both presidents aboard his yacht, the Corsair, and he sailed them up the Hudson. For hours, they argued. Morgan didn't duck. He kept the yacht moving, holding both men hostage until they agreed to his terms. The deal? The Corsair Pact stabilized the industry, and Morgan walked away with $1 million profit. A few years later, his father died in an accident. Pierpont inherited $15 million. For the first time, he was free from his father's shadow. His first move? Buy an even bigger yacht. When someone asked what it cost, he famously replied, "If you have to ask, you can't afford it." He would need that escape, because in 1893, the American economy was about to implode. The US dollar was tied to gold, but the government's gold reserve dropped below the $100 million line. The public panicked, banks failed, businesses collapsed. Railroads went bankrupt by the hundreds. The US Treasury was hemorrhaging $2 million in gold a day. President Grover Cleveland tried to sell bonds to the public. Morgan knew it would take too long. He sent a plan to the president. The answer came back, no. Morgan didn't accept that. He went straight to Washington and demanded a meeting. Cleveland refused. Morgan's response, "I have come to see the president, and I'm going to stay here until I see him." The next morning, as Morgan sat with the cabinet, a call came. The gold reserve had dropped to just $9 million. Morgan saw his opening. He told them he personally knew of a $12 million draft that, if cashed that day, would bankrupt the United States by 3 o'clock. The room went silent. Cleveland turned to him. "Have you anything to suggest, Mr. Morgan?" He did. A syndicate of private investors could inject gold directly into the Treasury, using an old Civil War loophole to bypass Congress. Cleveland signed. Within minutes, the deal was done. The crisis was averted. J.P. Morgan had just bailed out the United States government. But he didn't do it for free. He pocketed a hefty commission, raising a question that's still being asked today. Was he a patriot or a profiteer? By 1901, J.P. Morgan wasn't just powerful, he was unavoidable. When steel magnate Andrew Carnegie decided he was ready to retire, he didn't call a meeting. He just scribbled a number on a piece of paper, $480 million, and had it delivered. Morgan glanced at it, didn't hesitate. I'll take it. It was the largest business transaction in history. When Carnegie later joked he should have asked for another $100 million, Morgan's reply was telling. If you had, I would have paid it. Using Carnegie's company as the foundation, Morgan created U.S. Steel, the world's first billion-dollar corporation. It was valued at $1.4 billion, equal to 7% of the entire U.S. economy. Think about that. One company, 7% of the GDP. He didn't stop there. He controlled 1/3 of all rail lines in America, at a time when railroads made up 60% of the stock market. People whispered that he owned the country, and one man believed it, President Theodore Roosevelt. Unlike his predecessors, Roosevelt was anti-monopoly. He saw Morgan as the problem. Using the Sherman Antitrust Act, he went after Morgan's railroad trust, Northern Securities. Morgan, furious, rushed to the White House, arguing he should have been consulted. Roosevelt's reply was cold. That is precisely what we did not want you to do. In 1904, the Supreme Court broke up the company. Morgan was incensed. Hearing Roosevelt was heading hunting, he remarked, "I hope the first line that meets him does his duty." But Roosevelt knew that when the economy was in crisis, there was only one person to call. That call came in 1907. A failed copper company triggered a stock market panic. Bank runs began. The entire financial system was on the verge of collapse. Roosevelt set aside their differences, offering Morgan $25 million in government funds. Morgan knew what had to be done. He summoned the nation's top bankers to his private library, laid out a plan for them to bail out the failing institutions, and then he locked the door. As the nation held its breath, Morgan sat down to play solitaire. By morning, the bankers had agreed. The crisis was over. He walked down Wall Street to cheers, a hero. But it was the last time one man would hold that much power. By 1912, Morgan was the main target of a Senate investigation into the concentration of financial power. Under questioning, he was defiant, even charming. When asked if credit was based on money, he answered, "No, sir, the first thing is character." "Before money or property?" the lawyer pressed. Morgan didn't flinch. "Before money or anything else." The room erupted in applause. The committee found he controlled $22 billion through hundreds of corporations, more than 2/3 of the entire U.S. economy. They couldn't prove he'd broken the law, but the damage was done. The era of one-man rule over the economy was over. The scrutiny broke him. He'd nearly boarded the Titanic a year earlier, a last-minute change saving his life. But he couldn't escape this. Less than a year later, in 1913, J.P. Morgan died. His son blamed the investigation, the stress, the public vilification. When his will was read, people were stunned. He was worth only $80 million. Andrew Carnegie remarked, "And to think he wasn't even a rich man." But Morgan's legacy wasn't wealth, it was influence. The panic he stopped and the investigation he endured laid the groundwork for the Federal Reserve. His life raises a question we still grapple with. How much power should one person have? Morgan believed the answer was simple: as much as necessary. His death marked the beginning of a new era, one where institutions, not individuals, would hold that power. Morgan's America was over, but the systems he helped create and the crises he helped solve shaped the financial world we live in.
Hey, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the Business Lens. It really helps us keep creating stories like this one.
And let us know in the comments what company, empire, or business figure you'd like us to cover next. We read every suggestion, and your idea might be the next deep dive on this channel.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.